This is my Yeti SB100, and I was riding the other day and I noticed there was quite a lot of flex in the rear of the frame, and especially when I was doing corners, even on gravel, I could feel the bike was unstable. It was kind of wandering a little bit. So I got off and pulled the front brake on, applied some pressure on the pedals, and I could see that the rear wheel was flexing a lot. So there was obviously something wrong. So took an easy ride back to the workshop and took a look at it, and this is what I found. As you can see here, there's a bit of play in the rear Switch Infinity, and these two bolts here on the right hand side had loosened a little bit. Not very much, we're talking only a few millimeters, but that in fact meant that the rear wheel was actually wandering maybe a centimeter, and I could feel it on the gears as well. It wasn't gearing precisely. So if you notice there's some flex in the rear of the frame, put your front brake on, apply some pressure to the pedal and see if the rear wheel flexes in this direction. If it does that, it's probably your Switch Infinity that has loosened up. The good news is it's a really easy fix. You can do it yourself, as long as you haven't ridden too far or too hard. Most probably there isn't any damage to any of the parts, and it actually gives you quite a good opportunity to clean up some of the linkage in the rear of the frame and check to see if there's any problems with the bearings, if they need changing, and basically just give it a bit of maintenance and stuff. So, and it's a quick job. It's, you know, probably about half an hour at the most, and even in half an hour you're working fairly carefully, not particularly quickly like me. So it's worth doing yourself. Absolutely no reason to take it down your local bike shop at all, unless you do find something that's obviously wrong, broken, cracked or anything like that. So as you can see here, I released the frame from the linkage here. So the rear frame here, and that basically just releases the whole thing on the back. Obviously take your rear wheel off first. That gives you really easy access to the Switch Infinity system here. Now what I did was I actually removed these bolts here just to check to see if anything was wrong. It's worth doing just to make sure there's no cracks or damage around the frame, but there shouldn't really be. Gave it a really good clean up, and then I applied some Loctite to the bolts here, and then I'm going to tighten them to the specifications that are in the user manual. Now the good news is that the user manual that you find easily online, if you just Google your Yeti frame type and user manual, it has all the torque specifications in there, really easy to follow, that shows you how much you should tighten up. Please do follow the torque specifications, don't just do it by just guessing, because you will damage something in here, or not tighten it enough, and then you go out for a ride, it loosens quickly, and then again you might damage the frame and could end up costing you a lot of money. Nothing compared to what it is to invest in a torque wrench, which is quite, yeah, every bike maintenance, even amateurs should have one. So it's dead easy. You just stick your T25 torques in here. This has been set up for 12 Newton meters of torque. It's supposed to be between 12 and 14, so you can decide which one you want. Loctite on the thread here, and I've got the 5mm Allen key here just to hold it tight while I'm tightening up. And then basically just tighten it up. And just as a small tip, I did have to remove the drive side of the crank arm because this bolt here was too tight to get to in order to tighten it up with the torque wrench. So, but that's also just very simple. Off with the Allen key. Took me about 30 seconds, so it's no problem. Seeing as I'm a bit nerdy, I did actually take the left side off as well, just to give it a bit of a clean up and have a look at it. And what's really nice is if you just do one side at a time, you can just sweep it up like that. This just pops out and give it a bit of a clean. Take a good old look in there, get a rag in there, get rid of all the dust and everything. And also gives you an opportunity to check out the frame, make sure there's no damage and give it a bit of clean. Then you just, obviously once it's cleaned up, pop it back in, and then same as the other side, tighten it up to 12 to 14 Newton meters. little bit of a tip here is 12 Newton meters is quite a lot, so I have a Allen key set which is like this, and this was a lot easier to hold on to because you have to hold it in here at an angle on the ball of this tool. And the other thing is it does tend to eat into the palm of your hand a lot, so I actually found it was easy just to put a pair on gardening gloves just to hold it tight enough to get that 12.5 Newton meters is what is the minimum tightening specifications. Also, one thing I forgot to say is that you can see there's a slight difference from the outside to the inside of these here. So just make sure you're getting the right way around. To be honest, you've got to be a bit of a twat if you do it the wrong way, but somebody's going to manage it. Easy way to do it and to remember is to have the writing at the top on the inside, and I recommend not taking both out at the same time, because if you're like me, you put them in the wrong place and you forget which one's left and right, and that's definitely a bit of a twat stamp there if you make that mistake. So just be systematical when you do things and try and think it through so you don't mess things up. As you can see, when I took the bolts off the frame, I got the lower linkage at the bottom of my work surface, and I got the upper linkage bolts on the top of my work surface, left on left hand side, right on right hand side. Looks a bit nerdy, but it just saves you headaches afterwards. While you've got the frame off, check the bearings on your rear frame. Let's see if I can show you here. You can stick your finger in them and you can feel straight away if there's any play in them or if there's any resistance in the bearings. This one actually I can feel is kind of a bit gritty and it's not smooth at all. It'll be fine for a few more rides, but I'm definitely going to order a new set of bearings for this and replace them because these ones need sorting out, so that's going to be on the shopping list. Now, there are some videos out there that show you how you can put off these seals carefully and then clean and grease up the bearings. That will actually extend the life of your bearings, but I'm not going to do that in this situation, seeing as I've got one that's already basically knackered, and I'm going to have to order a new set anyway. But top tip, if your bearings are okay, you can absolutely do that. I've done it on other bikes as well. A little bit fiddly and greasy, but it does actually work, so worth a go. So that's everything put back together, nicely cleaned up and greased and tighten everything. Worth noting that this one tightens to 37 Newton meters and this one tightens to 46, and that's a pretty hefty tightening specification. So I'm going to put the back wheel on and then sit on the bike so I can get enough power into the tool to tighten this up properly, rather than doing it on the stand and stressing the seat tube too much. Now, what I think is a really good tip is to make sure that when you do a bit of bike maintenance, make sure you have enough time. Don't basically go out to your shed and try and do something like this an hour before you're going to go out riding, because you're just going to give you stress and you're going to mess it up. So first of all, make sure you've got enough time to do the bike maintenance. Secondly, make sure you have the right tools. Now, I know a lot of the tools can be quite expensive, so maybe a good thing is to go together with some of your mates and invest in a good tool set. If you've got people who live local by, quite often a lot of the tools you don't need very often, so you don't have to buy a set for yourself for absolutely everything. I've got a bunch of friends who we got some very specialist tools that we tend to send around, and it works really, really well, so top tip. Once you've got the bike back together and the rear wheel on, you're going to need to have a needle grease gun, and there's a little hole in there, and you have to press in your grease fat into there. I only have one of these and that didn't work, so I am going to have to put that on the shopping list too. I haven't had a Yeti before, so I haven't had a need for a grease gun, but yeah, buy yourself a needle grease gun to grease up the joints in your Yeti. There we go, it's all fixed up and ready to go. Bike's happy, I'm happy, and going to give the cat some food now.